So, you're watching a YouTube video, just minding your business, and an ad cuts in. On screen, a cartoon guy is about to get hit by a wrecking ball. Below him is a grid of pins. You can see the solution. Pull the left pin first, then the bottom one, and he swings to safety. It takes about 2 seconds to figure out, but the guy in the ad keeps pulling the wrong pins. Over and over. The character screams. He gets squashed. The screen flashes red, and somewhere in your brain, something clicks. I could do that. So you download it, and it's just Candy Crush with a house in the background. The pin puzzle, gone. The screaming man, gone. What you got instead is a match 3 puzzle game you've played 100 times before, dressed up in a different outfit. You've been played. And the thing is, so has a lot of other people. And you keep asking yourself a question. Why do game companies do this? Wouldn't it just be better to put the ads into the real game? So today we're gonna pull apart exactly how that happened, why it keeps happening, and why the people doing it have almost no reason to stop. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to a time when a phone in your pocket felt like a tiny miracle. It's around 2009, maybe 2010. The App Store is barely a year old. The smartphones in people's hands are slow, the screens are small, and the games running on them are, by any reasonable standard, pretty rough. But none of that mattered, because the whole thing felt like magic. Angry Birds dropped in 2009. You paid 99 cents and got a physics puzzle game where you flung birds at pigs. That was the whole pitch. The ad, when there even was one, basically just showed you the game. Birds, pigs, slingshot. Download it, and people lost their minds over it. 2 billion downloads. Then Cut the Rope came out in 2010. Same deal. You paid $1, you got a game about feeding candy to a little monster named Om Nom by cutting ropes. No fake gameplay, no dramatic characters almost dying. Just, here's the game, here's what it looks like, give us $1. Fruit Ninja, Temple Run, Jetpack Joyride, Subway Surfers. Every single one of these games advertised itself honestly, because the game itself was the pitch. The gameplay was the hook. Studios didn't need to lie, because what they actually built was genuinely fun, and the bar for genuinely fun on a phone was low enough in those days that clearing it felt like an achievement. There was something kind of pure about it. A tiny team of developers making something weird and original, charging $1 for it, and watching the whole world download it. The App Store felt like a discovery machine. You'd open it and find games that didn't exist anywhere else, built specifically for this weird new touchscreen form factor. That era had its own feel. You'd pass a phone around at lunch just to show someone Angry Birds. Your parents would somehow get addicted to Cut the Rope. These games traveled by word of mouth because they were actually worth talking about. But that era had a problem quietly building underneath it. One that would eventually crack the whole thing open. The problem was money. Specifically, the fact that there wasn't enough of it in the 99-cent model. When the App Store first opened, paying $1 for a game felt normal, familiar. It was basically the same as buying a song on iTunes or buying a CD for a game in GameStop. But the App Store moved fast, and it didn't take long for prices to start racing towards zero. Developers started dropping prices to stand out. Then, free games showed up, and suddenly, a paid game sitting next to a free one had to justify its existence just to get downloaded. By 2012, free-to-play had won, and the game that proved it definitively was Candy Crush Saga. Candy Crush launched on mobile in 2012, and it turned out to be the clearest proof anyone had ever seen that you didn't need to charge for a game to make money from it. You just needed enough people playing it. 70% of players who finished every level never paid a single cent. But the ones who did pay, the ones who got hooked and wanted to keep going and didn't want to wait, paid enough to carry the whole thing. King went from $62 million in revenue in 2011 to $1.8 billion in 2013, multiplying their revenue by 29 times in 2 years. That model had a name in the industry. The players who spent serious money, sometimes thousands, sometimes more, were called whales. And the math that powered the whole machine was simple. Get enough people through the door for free, and a small percentage of them will pay for a very long time. One mobile publisher reportedly had a single player who spent over $1 million on their platform. One person. This changed what mobile games were trying to do at a structural level. The goal stopped being make a game people want to pay for. It became get as many people as possible into the game, then build systems that convert some of them into long-term spenders. And that second goal had a completely different enemy than the first one did. Once free-to-play took over, the scarcest resource in mobile gaming stopped being good game design. It became eyeballs. By the mid-2010s, the App Store had millions of games. Millions. The average person opened the App Store, got completely overwhelmed, and downloaded whatever was already at the top of the charts. Getting to the top of the charts required downloads. Getting downloads required advertising, and advertising cost money. Specifically, a metric the industry runs on called CPI, which stands for cost per install. How much you spend to get one person to download your game. It sounds simple, but it becomes the obsession of every mobile game marketing team, because the math underneath it is brutal. If your average player ever spends spends about 25 cents in your game over their entire lifetime, and it costs you $3 to acquire them, you're bleeding out with every campaign you run. The only way the math works is if a small fraction of your players, your whales, spend enough to cover everyone else. So suddenly there were two numbers a mobile game studio cared about more than anything. How low can we get our CPI, and how many of our installs turn into spenders? Pull those levers right and you have a business. Fail to pull them and you burn through your budget and disappear. This pressure turned user acquisition, which is just the process of getting people to download your game, into its own discipline. Studios hired entire teams whose only job was to run ads, track which ones worked, and spend money getting installs. And those teams had a tool that would end up changing everything about how mobile games look from the outside. That tool was A/B testing. A/B testing is simple in concept. You make two versions of an ad. You run both of them. You see which one gets more downloads. You keep the winner, throw out the loser, make two more versions of the winner, and run those. Repeat this a few hundred times, and you end up with an ad that the algorithm has optimized to get as many people to tap as possible. The thing is, the algorithm doesn't care whether the ad is honest. It doesn't care what the game actually looks like. It cares about one number. Did someone tap and download? That's it. So studios started feeding the algorithm everything. Real gameplay footage, exaggerated gameplay footage, completely made up gameplay footage, and over, the algorithm picked the made up stuff. Fake ads, meaning ads showing gameplay mechanics that either barely existed in the game or didn't exist at all, were simply getting more downloads than honest ones. Nobody sat in a boardroom and said, let's lie to people. The machine just kept surfacing the same answer, and people kept following it. The studio that became the face of this was Playrix, the company behind Homescapes and Gardenscapes. Their games were match-3 puzzlers with a story layer on top. Think Candy Crush with a butler named Austin renovating a house. Totally fine games, genuinely popular. But their ads were something else entirely. In the ads, Austin was always in danger. A clogged toilet flooding the bathroom, a fire spreading through the kitchen, a collapsing ceiling. And to save him, you had to pull pins in the right order. A tense little physics puzzle that had almost nothing to do with matching colored tiles. The ads were dramatic, they were stressful, and they made you want to step in and solve the problem yourself. At launch, the pin-pulling mechanic existed in less than 1% of Homescapes' actual gameplay. It was buried so deep that most players never even reached it. The ads worked so well that the whole industry took notice. Other studios started copying the format, the stressed-out character, the physics puzzle, the dramatic fail. It spread like a template. Okay, so the algorithm found the fake ads. But why do they work? Why does watching a cartoon man nearly drown in a flooded bathroom make you want to download a match-3 game? Two things are happening at once. The first one is what researchers call the competence gap. When you watch someone doing something wrong that you know how to do right, you feel an almost physical need to correct it. Your brain generates the solution automatically and then gets frustrated that nobody is applying it. That frustration is uncomfortable. Downloading the game feels like it resolves it. Royal Match figured out a slightly different version of the same exploit. Royal Match ads. Their ads show someone playing a simple puzzle completely wrong. You're watching a word unscramble game and the player keeps trying hitnk when the word is obviously think. You're watching a shooter game and the player keeps picking subtract 10 when there's a giant add 50 right there. It's maddening on purpose. The psychology is create an ad so obviously wrong that someone gets frustrated enough to download the game just to show it how it's supposed to be done. And Royal Match made $3 billion in lifetime spending by May of 2024. So that strategy was clearly not wrong. The second thing happening is something even deeper, the curiosity gap. The ad shows you a scenario with a clear problem, teases attention, and then doesn't resolve it. Your brain, which craves resolution, generates a tiny nagging loop. The only way to satisfy it is to engage. And the easiest way to engage is to tap download. What makes this especially nasty is that neither of these psychological triggers has anything to do with the actual game. Your competence reflex was triggered by a pin puzzle. The game is a tile matcher. Those are not the same thing, but your brain already downloaded the game before it had a chance to figure that out. So we've established that fake ads work, the algorithm loves them, and they're built to short-circuit your brain's decision-making. The obvious question is, why doesn't someone just make them stop? The answer splits into 3 parts, and all 3 of them protect the people running the ads. The first part is legal. Misleading advertising is only illegal when it causes financial harm. Specifically, when it tricks you into spending money on something you wouldn't have bought if you'd known the truth. But the game is free. You download it for nothing. Your loss is a few minutes of your time and the data it harvested from you opening the app. Neither of those makes for a clean lawsuit. Since there's no financial damage the FTC can point to and directly tied to a specific ad, the legal teeth just aren't there. As one industry analysis put it, if the ad shows something that appears anywhere in the game, even buried behind hundreds of hours of other content, it can technically sidestep the usual definition of false advertising. However, the UK's Advertising Standards Authority did manage to ban Playrix's ads in October 2020. That was a real ruling, and it got coverage. But Playrix's response was to simply add the pin-pulling mechanic deeper into their games, officially making the ads technically accurate, and then keep going. The second part is the ad networks. Platforms like Facebook and Google make money every time someone clicks an ad. A fake ad that generates a lot of clicks is, from the platform's perspective, a highly successful ad. The platform has weak incentive to police content that's performing well, and a very strong incentive to keep serving it because it's generating revenue on both ends. The advertiser pays to run it, and the publisher of the app where it appears earns money when users watch it. The third part is the one that really seals everything. The advertisers themselves don't always know their ads are fake. Some studios farming out their creative work to cheap, fast agencies that use templates and stockish assets and auto-generate variations. They're not building a fake ad on purpose. They're running an optimization process, and the optimization process keeps picking things that don't match the game. The left hand doesn't always know what the right hand submitted. At this point, you might be wondering whether any of this is actually working in the long run. People download the game, find out it's not what the ad showed, and delete it. That sounds like a disaster. And actually, the data says it kind of is. Games using honest ads kept 32% of players after day one. Games running fake gameplay ads kept 14%. That's less than half. Segwise Research, 2025, the lifetime value of a user acquired through a fake ad dropped from around 25 cents to around 5 cents compared to a user acquired honestly. And 58% of mobile users said after a bad fake ad experience, they were unlikely to ever interact with a playable ad again. So why does this still make sense as a strategy? Because the CPI on a fake ad is low enough that even that 5-cent lifetime value can go even if you're running enough volume. You get 1 million installs cheaply. 90% of those people delete the game within 48 hours. But 10% stick around, and within that 10%, a fraction of a percent spend real money. If your CPI was low enough and your spenders spend enough, you technically didn't lose. It's not a great business, but it's a surviving business. And in mobile gaming, surviving long enough to find a whale is the whole game. But something started shifting around 2023 to 2024, and the studios that were paying attention noticed it. Players were getting pattern literate. They'd seen the pin puzzle 100 times. They'd seen the badly played word game. They'd seen Austin screaming in a flooding bathroom. The surprise was gone, and with it, a lot of the click-through rate. The algorithm still preferred fake ads, but the margin over honest ones was narrowing. On top of that, both Apple and Google quietly started pushing for more representative ad content. Not banning fake ads outright, just making it incrementally more likely that an ad showing completely different gameplay would get flagged. Enough pressure that bigger studios started hedging. And then the really interesting thing happened. Some studios figured out they could just put the thing in the game. If your pin puzzle ad is what's making people download, and the actual pin puzzle makes players happy when they get to it, why not just build the game around the pin puzzle? Why advertise a game that isn't the game you made? A handful of studios started doing exactly that, taking whatever was working in their ads and retrofitting it as actual gameplay, sometimes as a bonus mode, sometimes as the main thing entirely. The ad wasn't a lie anymore. It was just an early design doc that the game finally caught up to. Whether that trend spreads or gets squeezed back out by the next round of CPI pressure is genuinely unclear. The structural incentives, the whale model, the algorithm optimization, the cheap impressions, those haven't changed. The machine still wants fake ads. Individual studios have started pushing back against it, but the machine is patient. But now let's circle back for a little bit. The data says players who get tricked by fake ads have a 14% day one retention rate, but it doesn't say anything about what those players feel. And what they feel, most of the time, is a quiet version of being laughed at. You opened something because it looked fun, and you got something designed to extract money from you instead. Think about where you were the first time you played a mobile game that actually surprised you. Maybe it was 2010, and you were on a bus, and someone showed you Angry Birds, and you played for 3 stops past your actual stop. Maybe it was Cut the Rope, and you got weirdly attached to a little green blob named Om Nom. Maybe it was Temple Run, maybe it was Kingdom Rush, or even Shadow Fight. Nobody warned you those games were good. You found out because the game told the truth about itself. The ad showed you the slingshot, you pulled it back, and got what you were promised. That handshake between the ad and the actual game, that moment where the thing in your hand matched the thing in your head, that was the whole relationship. That was trust. And trust, once it's gone at scale, is almost impossible to rebuild. You can't untrain a generation of people who learn to assume every ad is lying. The players who came of age in the fake ad era already know. They swipe past. They mute the ad. They download download it with zero expectation, and delete it in 40 seconds. The entire emotional transaction that made the early App Store feel like something worth caring about has been hollowed out, and most people couldn't even tell you exactly when it happened. The studios doing this are not stupid. They know the retention numbers. They know fake ad players churn. They know the lifetime value is terrible. They know, on some level, that they are training their own audience to stop trusting them. And yet the quarterly pressure, the CPI targets, the investor decks that need to show install growth, all of it keeps pushing the same direction. So maybe the way out isn't waiting for a regulator to draw a bright line, or hoping the algorithm eventually figures out that honest ads build better businesses. Maybe the way out is simpler and harder than that. Make something worth showing. That's all the early studios did. Rovio didn't have a choice. They just had Angry Birds, and Angry Birds was enough. Zeptolab didn't have a choice. They just had Omnom, and Omnom was enough. They showed you the thing, and the thing was worth your time, and that was the whole pitch. The studios that figure that out again, the ones that build something genuinely new, show it honestly, and let the game make the case for itself, are going to have an audience that nobody else can buy. Because you can't buy trust back with a lower CPI. You can only build it the way it was built in the first place, by making something worth showing and then just showing it. That window from 2008 to maybe 2013 still exists in the memory of everyone who lived through it. The feeling of opening the App Store and finding something that had no business being that fun. The feeling of handing your phone to someone and watching their face. The feeling of an ad that just showed you a game, and a game that actually was what the ad showed. The players are still there. They still pick up their phones. They still download things. They just stopped expecting anything good to happen when they do. Someone could change that. They just have to make something worth the honesty.